Hi, cyberspace. I think I'm gonna stop predicting what next week's video is going to be about at the end of this week's video, like I've been doing the past couple times, because I never seem to stick to that prediction. I always seem to change it somewhere in the middle of the week and think, ooh, and get a different idea for a video. Like today, it's not going to be about Shakespeare and it's not going to be about Doctor Who. In fact, it's got nothing to do with either of those. I'm going to read you a little something that I've written, and I want you to leave me in the comments and tell me if it's worth to keep writing, if it's worth it to keep going. And I know some of you will be wondering what happened to my novel, and because you are eagerly awaiting chapter 13 and beyond, Vigo, I apologize. I am still writing Alexi Dutton. Alexi is getting done, but I kind of had like this really weird flash of inspiration, and I've got a couple pages of this, and I just want to know if it's worth it to write it after I'm done with Alexi, maybe. Or in between Alexi, because this is going to probably be a short story and not really in depth, whereas Alexi is obviously a huge novel that needs time and effort. So let me know what you think, and I'll just get going. And I will tell you one thing, the Jack in this story has nothing whatsoever to do with Jack Wilson, the character in Alexi Dutton. So, alright, I'm gonna go ahead. Alright. Jack often dreamed about dragons. It was an occupational hazard, he supposed, but sometimes he wished they would just let him get a good night's sleep. But he was the only dragon hunter in the kingdom at the time, so every night he dreamed of dragons, whether he wanted to or not. It was the only way to find dragons, to dream of them. They preferred to hide out in the mountains, or under the surface of the sea, or high up in the clouds. They only came to towns every once in a long while, to poach sheep when they overhunted their territory or there was a bad year. They never came to cities. They tried to avoid humans at all costs. They were recluses by nature. But humans hunted them anyway. Well, they hired Jack to hunt them. And technically, they didn't even hire Jack. They hired Sir George, the dragon slayer, renowned throughout the kingdom as the one, the only, the best dragon hunter since the great St. George of old, whose name he shared. Many people hailed him as the second coming of St. George, and there were several small towns in the foothills of the mountains that treated him like royalty whenever he came through. The queen, his employer, would surely have been outraged at the way her subjects lavished praise and comforts on Sir George the dragon slayer, and Jack would give a lot of gold to see her face if that day ever came. He would laugh his ass off, and the queen would have reprimanded him, but she would not be able to punish him, because he was the only dragon hunter in the kingdom, and everyone loved him. He wondered vaguely if they would love him as much if they knew that he was not really Sir George the dragon slayer, but was really Jack No Name, from nowhere. Orphan Jack, who had grown up in the streets of the capital, begging and stealing and fighting to scrape a meager and pathetic existence out of the muddy gutters, and dreaming of dragons all the while. Orphan Jack, who had no name, no history, and no faint memories like the other boys. Orphan Jack, who dreamed of dragons despite what the other boys told him, that dragons weren't real, that dragons never came to the city, and that the dragon hunters were frauds. Orphan Jack, who had wanted nothing in life but to see a dragon once before he died. And one day, an aging knight had ridden past, and Jack had looked up at him, and had known. The knight had smiled at him, and asked the only question Jack had ever wanted to hear. "Do you dream of dragons, boy?" And then all the other boys had stared in awe, had glared in jealousy, and had cheered him on as he took the knight's hand and sprang up onto the horse behind him, to leave the city and begin his training as a dragon hunter. The knight had taught Jack everything he knew about dragons and hunting them, and looking back on it now, Jack wondered how exactly the old knight had lived as long as he had. He had left Jack with a rusting sword, a tired old horse, and the bare minimum of the knowledge needed to kill dragons. All dragons have a soft spot, somewhere. The trick is to find it. And that was all the old knight had said about dragons. He had taught Jack how to use the rusting sword competently, and to ride the horse rather better, and then he had died, and he had left Jack to discover the rest on his own. But the knight had given him the start he needed, and it wasn't hard for Jack to learn, quickly, everything that he did need. And it wasn't hard for him to realize that no one, anywhere, would ever believe that Jack No Name was a dragon hunter. So when he returned to the city, he called himself Sir George, the dragon slayer. He styled himself the savior of the neighboring kingdom, and he wheedled a contract out of the queen. And then he went to the mountains, and he actually got the reputation he claimed to have. The hard way. By killing dragons. So if you can let me know what you think of that, and if it's worth it to continue writing about a boy named Jack who dreams about dragons and hunts them for a queen of a fictional magical land, let me know. And I will see you next week with hopefully a better vlog than me reading to you my own writing. Meanwhile, I will keep being nerdy. I will continue working on Alexi Dutton, I promise. And I will see you guys next week. Bye!